Channel 114. Channel 114.
On Friday, July 17th, there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of $60,000. A new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot, $60,000. One scratch card, 3 games, 16 chances to win. With a top prize of $125,000. Unbelievable but true. It's the new $10 scratch game. $125,000 jackpot. Loaded with lots of cash prizes. $100, $1,000, $10,000, and $125,000. Get your ticket from any lotto agent or scratch runner. $125,000 jackpot. There's cash to catch with just a scratch.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Roundtable Talk. We are pleased to welcome back Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Ralph E. Gonsalves. He was here with us last week, and I think there were some loose ends. When we ended the program, people were just sending in their questions, and I've heard from people who thought that we should have really have you back to end things off. You've had a very busy week.
Yes.
I mean, from last week's program, met the RE, I guess, of Prime Minister of Antigua, Gaston Brown, in some way. What has happened during the last week?
Well, Gaston Brown, as I'd indicated to you, my friend, apparently your program was well followed in Antigua. And it probably triggered some comments. I don't believe he saw the program, or somebody must have told him about some aspects of it, not everything. So I don't think he had a balanced perspective on it. Anyway, he called me on Friday evening, and we spoke. Whatever misconceptions he had, I clarified them. And I understand he went to Parliament on the Saturday, where they were doing an amendment to the Companies Act. So I've been advised, I've seen the amendment, to put in place a kind of Chapter 11 administration type. Chapter 11 in the United States, when you're dealing with bankruptcy. To put an administration type arrangement that's distinct from a liquidation. And I think he's doing that in part because of what his conception is as to how Liat 1974 Limited should be brought to an end. I don't know the details of the law. But there's certain arithmetic. It doesn't matter what you do with the law. There's some arithmetical issues in terms of the numbers. But I understand in Parliament he was quite generous to me. I got different reports that he said he liked me, others that he loved me. I'm his I'm his favorite prime minister in the region, and he's my friend for life. And so you get all this is the ebb and flow of politics and water under the bridge. And I've been trying to organize a meeting, as I had indicated to you. I have an interest in him making a presentation to the major shareholders, what he wants to do. He has written about that written to me and the other major shareholders. And as the chairman of the shareholders of Liat, I'm trying to facilitate this meeting. It should have been on Monday. It couldn't come off because Prime Minister Motley, it wasn't convenient for her. She's trying to find some space. She said this week is a very busy week, but I spoke to her on Monday and suggested that we find, if it's an hour and a half, we find some space in order to hear him.
What would this meeting achieve?
Well, I think we owe him a hearing that he wants to present a view as to how he thinks that Liat 2020 can emerge out of the ashes of Liat 1974 Limited. But I haven't seen a plan. I haven't seen, more importantly, the financing of such a plan. And I don't think that Mia is interested. At the same time, as you know, I am concerned about not just a concept of how you can have another airline replace Liat. I'm concerned about how do I move people in and out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the rest of the region, and how I can have the rest of the region also move, because I have an obligation as Prime Minister to be concerned about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but I'm also chairman. Well, I'm also in the quasi cabinet of CARICOM. I deal with regional air transportation, of course. It's policy issues, like getting the multilateral air services agreement in order and get persons to sign and ratify and the like. But there are assets in the region, as I said to you before, and I've been working with 4 companies, 4 airlines. CAL, which is the major one. CAL has 12 jets and 7 ATR turboprop 7 ATR 72s, which take 70 passengers each. And they have 2. I've been advised to do a wet lease with them if required. And then there is from the Northern Caribbean, inter-Caribbean, with about 15, 16 different kind of aircraft. Turboprop, small jets, slightly bigger jets. And they operate in the Northern Caribbean. They're out of Turks and Caicos. I think they reach down in a limited way, even down to St. Lucia. And they want to come into this part of the world. And that's fine with me. And One Caribbean, which I said before, and to remind everyone, they have 3 aircraft, a 19-seater, and 2 SABs, 30-seater SABs, Scandinavian airline, very good, very safe airlines. And there's another which they have requested, a 3rd one to lease. But these are all planes on leasehold. And then SVG Air, which has 6 Twin Otters. 4 of them are owned by the Mustique Company, which they manage for the Mustique Company, and I've spoken to the Mustique Company too. And SVGA also has 2 Islanders, 9-seaters, and also a small jet, executive jet, really. I think it's owned by one of the groups in Canawan, which they operate. SVGA operates. They want to have additional aircraft too. In fact, the One Caribbean did the first scheduled flight regionally in this part of the world since March 29th, when Liat last flew. And one Caribbean went from here to St. Lucia to Barbados in the morning and returned in the
this
evening.
Did happen last Sunday?
Yeah. And then Monday too, I don't know. They're going 4 times a week.
Okay.
And SVGA said that they were going to start this week doing the Grenada route. The Twin Otters, the 19-seaters, are good workhorse planes also for short distances. And they operate at the moment in the Northern Caribbean. They operate between Dominica and Antigua and Nevis and St. Kitts. Shorter routes now. In fact, in Dominica, they do a lot of work at the small airport in Canefield near to Roseau. So they have their planes can land there easily.
As you talk about planes, former Prime Minister James Mitchell has said that the region has been investing in the wrong type of planes. What's your take on that?
Well, I don't know if my colleague, former Prime Minister, Sir James, is the most authoritative person to speak about types of airline, because he tried to get Liat out of the skies with Carib Express, which he said was his baby, which was a jet to operate a short distance, a sizable jet between here and Barbados. It didn't last as long as Miss Janie Fire. So I don't know which planes he's talking about. Broadly speaking, most of the experts consider the ATRs to be good planes. The thing is the de Havilland aircraft, the 100s and the 300s, the 37-seater and the 50-seaters, they don't make them anymore. And they were making a different plane, which was not assessed to be as economical as the ATRs. But there are smaller planes. There are lots of other smaller planes. We just talk about one Caribbean with the Saba, and we talk about the SVG Air with the Twin Otters. CAL has the turboprop aircraft they have. They're ATR 72s. So it depends on what criteria you're looking at. But most of the turboprop operations in the Caribbean, Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, are ATR 42s and 72s. So that is one of the things which I look at practically, Teresa. If you have CAL, which has the strength, owned by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, it's not going to fly any social routes. It's not going to fly routes which don't bring a return to them. They say that they can do 80% of the pre-COVID network of Liat. Even if it's not 80%, if it's 65% or even 60%, you have Inter-Caribbean, which will take up, do a lot of run-ins, and so too One Caribbean, and also SVG Air, and they will find their niches and they will create their own markets. They're smaller, leaner airlines. They can have their schedules more flexible, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward very much to both One Caribbean and SVG Air in St. Vincent trying to work together. But I want also to have a meeting with, and I spoke to Mia about this, Mia Motley, I spoke to Roosevelt Skerritt, Keith Mitchell, at a meeting, and I mentioned the same thing to Gaston Brown. And of course, if Gaston gets Liat Pt2 or any other aircraft, and that aircraft can compete, that's okay. But is one thing I'm not doing. I'm not looking forward to the past. I had St. Vincent and Grenadines had put a lot of resources into Liat, and people will tell you that Liat has not had a champion over the last near to 20 years as strong as Ralph. I mean, when Stanford, when other governments and opposition parties were hailing Stanford as the new conquering hero in aviation in the region, I wasn't with them on that. And I still maintain that in our regional air transport, we in the region should own or control, when I say we, the private sector and or the government, in whatever proportions and shares, in whole or in part, should own and control our regional air transportation.
We'll talk more about that when we come back for our second segment. Back in just a moment.
One scratch card, 3 games, 16 chances to win. Win with a top prize of $125,000. Unbelievable but true. It's the new $10 scratch game. $125,000 jackpots. Loaded with lots of cash prizes, $100, $1,000, $10,000, and $125,000. Get your ticket from any lotto agent or scratch runner. $125,000 jackpots. There's cash to catch with just a scratch. On Friday, July 17th, there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of $60,000. A new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot, $60,000.
Welcome back, Prime Minister. Just before we took our first break, I think you were expanding on what you anticipate the future would look like as far as regional air transport in the region.
I believe you're going to have a central airline, like for instance CAL, doing a lot of good work. The Caribbean Airlines owned by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and CAL is not in the business to subsidize anybody. So they have to do the routes which they're going to make money on, because they're 72 seaters. Remember this. It's easy if a SAB is going from here to Barbados at an hour where they take 20 passengers. That's 20 out of 30. But 20 on an ATR 72 is 20 out of 70. It's a horse of a different color. Same thing with the 19-seaters for the Twin Otters. Say go in Grenada or going to Barbados. I mean, you take, for instance, if people, when the U.S. Embassy opens back for people to go there with their visas, SVG Air can leave at 6:30, for instance, get there in time for somebody to take the taxi or the bus to reach down at the American Embassy to be interviewed for their visa, or for that matter, the 30-seater SAB with One Caribbean. Now, that has a particular market. Now, Carl with the ATR 72 choose probably a different hour. Incidentally, since we spoke the last time, I've spoken not only to the people in SVG Air and also with One Caribbean. Last week I had One Caribbean to come to the cabinet. On Friday I spoke with again with the people from SVG Air. I was on the phone with Cal, with Ronnie Mohammed, the chairman. And sometime in another week or so, they may be doing the Barbados St. Vincent run and going to one or two other places. They will send me the schedule. It's not definitive yet, but what they're... Okay. And then the Inter-Caribbean has already gotten rights to land in Barbados, in Grenada, in St. Lucia. They're waiting on Dominica, and they're waiting on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I have no doubt that they will get these rights. And they propose certain routes. The professionals, the director of airlines of airports in the country, Mrs. Andrea Bess, she's the one who is dealing with that. The Air License and Transport Board would deal with those arrangements. They interface with the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, see if everything is in order. Certain technical safety issues and the like. And I expect that Inter-Caribbean would be flying also in the not too distant future. So I'm spending time on this, and I'm working on it. And as I say, in the meantime, I'm encouraging all the governments not just to sign, but to ratify the Multilateral Air Services Agreement, which would permit which would facilitate the easier movement of aircraft within the region by those which are registered within the region. Teresa, when I told you last week, you have 20-something airlines which based in the region or based just outside of the region, which function within the region. I'm not talking now about the big foreign-owned carriers. We have, in terms of the foreign carriers, I have a list here: Air Canada, American Airlines, British Airways, JetBlue, Silver Airways, Sunwings out of Canada, Trade Aviation, TUI Airlines Belgium, Virgin Atlantic. Those are ones that come from big from the markets in US, Canada, Europe. And then Caribbean operators. You have Air Antilles Express. This is based in the French West Indies. It goes to Barbados and Dominica too, and Guyana. It goes to Port-au-Prince in Haiti, in Puerto Rico. It has turboprop aircraft, ATR-72s, a lot of different aircraft. Then there's Air Caribes, Caraibes.
That's French.
French. They operate already schedule and charter services in Haiti, the Bahamas.
Time, I think.
No, I think not this one, another one allied to it. But they have they have 2 ATRs, 72s, and they have a lot of, they have 13 Airbus to take. So you can take an ATR from here, you can go to Martinique, then you can go to France, which is another entry point you can make through Europe, to go to Europe. Then there's Air Sunshine, which is an airline based in Florida. They have been in touch with us. They have a Caribbean hub in San Juan. And they operate mainly in the northern Caribbean, but they've reached down as far as Dominica. Airways International, this is in Jamaica. ALN Bermuda, Aruba Airlines, Caicos Express Airways, Captain's Aviation, which is out of Jamaica. Caribbean Airways, we talked about that just now. Cayman Airways, Executive Air, which is out of Barbados. Hinterland Aviation, they operate in the Eastern Caribbean and Guyana, Barbados. Inter-Caribbean Airways, I just spoke about that. Different kinds of planes. Then there, of course, there's Liat. There's Long-Tail Aviation. They provide a lot of private charter services. Montserrat Airways, they use the Islanders. Mustique Airways, which is one of our own, One Caribbean. Roraima Airways in Guyana. Routair, RUTAIR, that's in Jamaica. Southern Air Charter Company that's operating in the Bahamas. SVG Air, which is our own here. Tara Couriers, also Jamaica. Team Air Limited is also Jamaica. Trans-Guyana Airways, as the name suggests, is Guyana and goes in other places in the Eastern Caribbean. Tropic Air, air service in Belize. VI Airling, this is from the British Virgin Islands. And Wings Aviation, turboprop and small light aircraft. But you see, most of them are operating in the Northern Caribbean. So when persons say, well, Ralph, you're looking at the airline down this side, what about the Northern Caribbean? Northern Caribbean has quite a good service other than Liat. You're not going to have a Liat which is going to do the kind of social, Liat 1974 Limited, do the kind of social routes, which they have been doing year in, year out, without other governments putting in money either in equity or in market support.
Let's talk a little bit about the importance of an open skies policy in this new dispensation.
Well, that's important because the Multilateral Air Services Agreement, the revised one, there was one of 1996-97. It didn't have the openness like this one has. To facilitate, as I said to you, the easy movement of aircraft and airlines throughout the region is very important, and for there to be a sharper competition. But what we need, as always, I address first the question of the ownership and control of the regional air transport in the hands of people within the region. Because if we had just gone and allowed Stanford to take control, what would have happened when he ended up
where he is now?
Where he is now. And I've been advised on orange jumpsuit in some place, an institution somewhere in the deep south of those United States. That's ownership and control. The multilateral air service agreement and the facilitation of easier movement, and critically, in the actual aircraft which taking you, the service must be sustainable. It must be reliable. You know, it can't go up and come down and last as long as Miss Janie fire. It must be sustainable. It must be reliable, that you don't break down, you don't have your messed up schedule, you go to the airport, your bag's checking, you can't leave. It must be safe, and it must be affordable. And insofar as it is practicable to have choices, though in a market as small and fragmented as the one in CARICOM, the choices are going to be limited by the nature of the investment which is put in and by the market conditions. And coming out of COVID, a number of the airlines were played cautious and careful how many aircraft they utilize in this particular period and how did demand pick up. All these are questions to be answered, not by me in a TV studio or anybody abstractly. The market, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. But there's not going to be any one of them as dominant as Liat once was, because you notice that Cal is saying that they will provide 80% of pre-COVID network. I don't know if they're going to provide 80%. When things pan out, they might be 75%, it might be 60%. But in any event, you have other airlines which are nimble, smaller, nimbler, would find spaces.
So would there be any kind of collaboration between
Well,
CAL
I'm hoping. I discussed this with Ronnie Mohammed from CAL. And as always with these things, even though you have cooperation, you're still going to have competition. It's to our advantage. Everybody's advantage for them to be some competition, while you at the same time have cooperation. So you don't have a race to the bottom, a race to the death, so to speak. But something which is, I come back, sustainable, reliable, safe, and affordable.
Okay, we'll be right back for our third break.
Channel 114. VINCENT. Channel 114.
On Friday, July 17th, there'll be thousands of dollars to be won. A lotto jackpot of $60,000. A new home, car, or that college education.
Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Next lotto jackpot, $60,000.
Welcome back, and this is our third segment. There's one more after this. Prime Minister, you were making the point when we took that last break. You remember what you were saying?
Yeah, I was making the point really that you're not going to have an airline in the region with the singular dominance of Liat, and I explained the reasons why. But you're going to have a substantial carrier like CAL with good institutional strength and a history behind it. And then you have an airline like Inter-Caribbean, which has 28 years plus. They've been in this business, and they have a significant number of assets, planes of different types. And they're willing to come and tango in the competitive field.
But I also know that Prime Minister Brown, again, didn't seem too much in favor of having CAL playing such a critical role.
Well, I think when I read Gaston's comment, when I hear him talk, he says that he doesn't want CAL to have a monopoly. Mm-hmm. And he said that Trinidad and Tobago are the supermarket of the region, and he doesn't want them to control a lot of food coming into the islands, and now they want to control the airspace. I mean the airline business. Now, first of all, I don't think that CAL is going to have a monopoly, because I've just pointed out to you these are the airlines. So that's the one. The second thing is this. CAL is a Caribbean carrier, a carrier out of CARICOM. Within the framework of the Multilateral Air Services Agreement, I could stop CAL. I can't stop CAL coming. I don't have any quarrel with CAL. The thing is this. We have to make sure that we have undertakings where if you have a route that CAL doesn't just drop it tomorrow morning, having dealt with it yesterday, say, well, listen, you must know you have an idea, unless some emergency arises, that you're likely to be restructuring your routes and so on. Give us some notice to see if we could have somebody else fill that space in one of the other competitive carriers. So I'm not worried about that, frankly. What I'm concerned about now is getting sustainable, reliable, safe service, which is affordable, by carriers owned and or controlled by the people, private sector, or the governments of the region in whatever proportions, and that we operate within a proper framework like the Multilateral Air Services Agreement, and that we, with our regulatory regime, with the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, be more efficient so that we can respond more swiftly to things and move at a faster pace.
Are you saying that you're seeing less of a government role in provision of regional air transportation as the way forward?
No, the government would be very, very much there in regulating. The governments own the aerodromes. You can't fly the planes other than on an airport, and the airports are owned by the government. So that there the governments themselves are involved. The government's responsible issues with taxation, landing fees of this or that type, all the various regulatory arrangements. A government cannot be separate from the airline business. The question is, does the government have to own the airline? And that question is that the government doesn't have to own the airline. Government will have shares in an airline. In any event, when you have it in a startup, like for instance, the work which One Caribbean is doing or SVG Air, and for that matter, a new airline which comes in, like One Caribbean, they always want some concessions, they always want some support systems. So be it. But the state itself has to be involved. It can't be otherwise. I mean, the International Civil Aviation Organization is consisted of member states.
That's correct.
And that's the regulatory framework globally. And they have their regulations are applied by the various authorities, air transport, like the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority or the Barbados Civil Aviation Authority, Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority. They all have their regulatory authority. So the airlines have to function within a proper regulatory framework. I mean, the bus leaving Little Tokyo going to Georgetown has to function within a regulatory framework. The government don't own no the bus. But you will have policemen just in case they break in the traffic laws.
What about the question of taxes? Because there's this complaint that taxes are just too exorbitant on these.
Yes. Now, there's an argument by some that you can't reduce the taxes because you have the airports to pay for. People want a better airport service, a better ambience. You want to move from something like E.T. Joshua to go to Argyle International. Talking about upgrading the airport in Antigua, in St. Lucia, in Barbados. They're talking about it in Dominica and so on. All about. In Antigua, they expanded, renovated their airport. St. Lucia wants to do that too. They have development taxes. But they also have what we call the traditional departure tax. The two taxes in each case are very significant. St. Vincent and the Grenadines had one of the smaller departure taxes, $40 US, just over $100 EC. But I've reduced that to 20. 20 for CARICOM. Well, for everybody, 20 across the board, 20 US. So that's a significant drop, and it is now the cheapest.
What was
in
your
the region.
thinking by reducing those taxes?
I want to see if we can get more regional traffic and also more international traffic too. And I don't have the problem like what, to the extent that St. Lucia has, or Antigua, with the cost of the expansion in Antigua and what they own it. It's far more than what we owe on our airport. Our indebtedness on the airport is under $300 million EC. Just to expand the aerodrome and to do work on a terminal building in St. Lucia at Hiwanura. Understand the bill is $150 million or upwards. And they're borrowing money at rates not as low as what we had obtained money from. So I don't have the same pressure on me. But the extent of the debt, even though it's still a significant debt, is nowhere near like what those others are going to incur and or have incurred. At least that's my understanding of how that is.
I know we're talking regional air travel. Someone wants to know, why don't we try sea ferries and see how it goes?
No, that idea always comes up. But if you're going to have fast ferries, it's very expensive to run. You know, we had a fast ferry from Union Island. You may recall that we loaned it $100,000 US and gave it certain other supports. And it still wasn't affordable. They're going up, they're in Montserrat, I think. They do Antigua, Montserrat. Mm-hmm. And they're making money, and they're certainly paying the loan, which they borrowed from the government. When you look at the numbers, it's kind of daunting when you look at the arithmetic. Somebody will have to have a deep pocket, some country, and you decide that all your clock, you're going to sink a certain amount of money in it, and that once you get a good service, that over the period of time, it would pay back. But it's not cheap.
No, it's not as easy as it sounds.
No, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment.
One scratch card, 3 games, 16 chances to win. Win with a top prize of $125,000. Unbelievable but true. It's the new $10 scratch game. $125,000 jackpots, loaded with lots of cash prizes: $100, $1,000, $10,000, and $125,000. Get your ticket from any lotto agent or scratch runner. $125,000 jackpots. There's cash to catch with just a scratch.
Welcome back, and before we get back into the discussion, someone is asking, Mr. Gonsalves, could you phrase for me, please, a saying that I oftentimes hear from you? Politics is serious business, business for serious people. What are the words that complete your saying?
Well, I would say that politics is serious business for serious people. It is not a branch of the entertainment industry. And I say, if you want entertainment, I often add, if you want entertainment, check out Skinny and Fireman Hooper. But if you want to discuss serious matters, you know, and I think whoever asked that question will probably be reflecting Theresa. And we have been having this issue for the last several weeks now about Liat. And have you heard anybody around in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, even those, the aspirants for office, have you heard them saying anything about what would be their vision? How could they see things? Have they studied the issue? What do you get? Or I'll put so much money in Liat over the last 19 years, near 20 years. And it has failed, and that is his failure. Oh, it is my failure. And if I didn't put the monies and try to rescue it, it served Vincentians well.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is this, that do I play the leadership role at several junctures? When we did the refleeting, for instance, which was a big expenditure, Barbados took the bulk of the expenses there. The next in line, Antigua, and then ourselves. And the refleeting exercises was $5 million US. We put in, as I said, on the basis of the principle, an Aristotelian principle of equity among equals, proportionality among unequals. And Antigua, Barbados and Antigua and Barbuda were the main beneficiaries. You can see the number of people they have employed and the like. Looking
back, that investment, would you say that it was a mistake? Or?
No. Look, the model that Liat was functioning with, it is difficult for Liat to do anything other than the optimal position, break even, make a small profit. Because you were connecting people, and you were in connecting people, contributing to economic development, social intercourse, political things. What would happen to the Caribbean Development Bank and the OECS and CARICOM and the currency union, with all the movements which have to take place for people? How would they function? Nowadays, we're using Zoom since COVID, but you still would also have to have people meeting. It's the nature of organizations. You just can't do it virtually.
Face, yeah.
You have to do many things face-to-face too. And we have been served well by Liat. Look, pre-COVID, we had between 36 and 42 flights a week by Liat. Six flights a day in some periods. That's 42. There's a lot of people being moved in and out. So I don't see how you can say that if we had a regular service of that kind and it lasts for 20 years or so, or when we got seriously involved. That is what the NDP tried to take out of the sky with Caribbean Express, Caribbean Express, and that is what. And they wanted Stanford's Caribbean Star to succeed and Liat to fail. And every time I want to put money in Liat, it's like a red rag to a raging bull. No. They had a mindset about it. But if you notice, we come to the pass where Barbados, the principal shareholder, almost 50%. Say, listen, we have a tough IMF program. I have no more money to put in it. As we say in cricket, I take a fresh guard because I see the numbers. I look at the arithmetic. I'm not going to look forward to the past. I look for the options, which is what scientific people do. You don't be a dinosaur or you don't wrap yourself in sackcloth and ashes and start to have incantations of lamentations. No. You look at the problems before you, you analyze them seriously and come to certain conclusions. And many a time I hear people talking about these things. They don't study them. They stylize facts in search of a theory of explanation. So what is the theory of explanation? Having stylized the facts is Ralph's fault. Well, what about the nature of the market, which is small and fragmented? What about legacy issues in Liat? What about certain climate change costs? What about certain periods when the fuel prices went sky high? What about unfair competition for a period of time until I challenged them from Cal during the time when Kamala was leading Trinidad and Tobago? What about while we are managing things going and you have losses of reasonable magnitude, you can somehow fix it. But in 2017, we had 2 Category 5 hurricanes. We have several storms. Well, those are Ralph's fault. When you lose $40-something million because the network is disrupted and it goes into the second year, 2018, and you lose about $30 million. And you come in 2019 in a recovery of sorts, you have $14 million losses, approximately. Then COVID comes, and in May, before the end of May, you're $35 million in the hole. And the principal shareholder says, listen, I have no money to put him, I'm on a tough program. That's Ralph's fault. You know, in any case, I'm the chairman of the shareholders. The airline is run by professional managers, and there's a board of directors. My representative, St. Vincent Grenadines representative on the board, is Isaac Solomon. When I hear they say that, oh, I'll put politician on board, and which politician I put on a board? Isaac Solomon was the budget director here. Then he worked at the central bank. Then he became head of the operations of RBTT in the in the Eastern Caribbean. Now, you know, it's just fanciful talk. It's just nonsensical talk. And you see, one of the reasons why these persons usually avoid having a discourse with me, but prefer to just stay at a distance and just say things, and they're repeated over and over again. And they think it's true, you know. It's like some people, they will go and see a brown cow in the field, and they will swear and they will repeat, no, it's a white calf with some black spots. It's a polka dot calf, but yet the whole world sees that it's a brown calf. It's a brown cow. But what are you going to do? And they repeat that over and over and over again. And somebody, you will walk the street, and one of their supporters will say, Ralph, what are you talking about? It was not brown cat. It was not brown cattle inside of the field there. It's a white one with some black spots on it. I say, well, let me take you and show you now. No, I don't want to see. I know it's so. You only say it's a brown. You want to fool me. What are you going to do with that kind of a... But you can't run a country like that, you know. You may run a campaign on commerce. You may run a campaign on falsehoods and innuendo. And you run a campaign in redefining a brown cow as a white calf with black spots. But you can't run a country like that.
And on that note, we've come to the end of this evening's edition of Roundtable Talk. So glad that you could find the time to be back with us. We have put the Liat issue and regional transportation to rest. And when we come back, we discuss something else. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Prime Minister. Until next Wednesday, this has been another edition of Roundtable Talk. See you next time, and thank you for viewing.